It's always good practice to feed your aquatic pets a varied, healthy diet, whether it be dried food up to frozen foods. And greens, it's always good to throw greens in the diet too, but all those foods do need preparation. So today, we're going to have a look at a vast variety of different foods that you can feed your fish. Some are quite unexpected, and some are extremely good for your shrimp and fish. So without further ado, let's take a look. Hi everybody and welcome back to another video. I'm Russ and I believe that feeding time is one of the better parts of the aquarium hobby. And I do feed all my tanks a varied diet. So today we're going to take a look at the prep of some of the foods. So we're going to take a look at the prep of frozen foods, because there's different ways of prepping your frozen foods. We're going to take a look at how to prep greens like cucumber and broccoli and spinach. And we're going to take a look at foods that you can find out in the wild that can be quite dangerous to your fish if you're not careful, and can be dangerous to yourself if you're not careful. So we'll take a look at those as well. Plus, that one, with it being picked outside, is also free, and you'll be surprised that if you feed it to your shrimp, just how crazy they go for it. We're going to take a look at bee pollen and the benefits of feeding bee pollen to certain tanks at certain times. So, first of all, let's take a look at frozen foods. Now, there's different ways of prepping frozen foods, and I'll be honest, I just take my frozen food, pop it out into a glass ramekin, let it defrost. I add garlic guard to that, and then I let that soak overnight, and the next day I mix a little bit of tank water in there and I pipette feed all my 4 tanks. But there are other ways. Now, when I said I did that, a friend of mine on the Facebook page, Fish Keeping in the UK, on the Facebook group I should say, she said that she feeds her frozen food a different way. She actually puts her frozen food cubes in a tea strainer and lets the water drip away. I'd never really come across this before. I asked her why, and she said it's because of the toxins that are in the water in the frozen food. That's never affected my tank. I did a YouTube poll and it's about 50-50. Some people just defrost the food, some people defrost and drain the food. I've never had a problem just defrosting, but there are 2 ways of doing it. And also, there is a new way of feeding frozen food, and that is one of these. It's a 3D printed frozen food feeder. And what you do with that is you place a block of frozen food into that, you place that into the aquarium, it floats, and as the frozen food defrosts, the food falls down and the fish feed from that. And what that actually does is reduce the frenzy of feeding time. So if you've got a lot of fish that are a little bit spooked by feeding time, the frozen food feeder is a great way to go. And I'll leave a link for that product in the description. So it's always good to add greens into the diet of your tropical fish. Now, that could be a variety of different types of greens. That could be spinach, it's quite popular, courgette, bell pepper, cucumber, broccoli. All those are really, really good foods to feed your tropical fish. Even frozen peas. So with frozen peas, I will show you how I do broccoli, cucumber. Frozen peas are just straightforward really. So you tip a few frozen peas into a cup, add boiling water, give it 2 minutes, drain them, remove the shell from the pea, and then just slightly crush the pea in between 2 spoons, and you feed that to your fish. As it falls through the water, fish like your rainbowfish, angelfish, different types will pick away at that food. And when it gets to the bottom, you'll find that your bottom feeders, your corridoras, your plecos, many different types of catfish will go crazy for garden peas. But that's how you prep garden peas. Let's take a look at how we prep broccoli and cucumber. So with broccoli, I take a floret of broccoli, cut that into 4. I then place them 4 pieces into a cup of boiling water, and I microwave that for 1 minute, and then I put to the side. After a few minutes of the broccoli just sitting in the boiling water, I then drain it, and I then put cold water in the cup, and I'll let the broccoli sit there for 5 minutes in cold water, so when you do put it in the tank, it doesn't burn the fish's mouth. The next food that I feed my fish frequently are the Rainbowfish gel foods. And they are so really, they go unnoticed in the aquarium hobby. And these were brought to my attention by a good friend of mine, Richard at Fish Keeping Answers, and he feeds his shrimp Rainbowfish gel foods. And they are amazing. I use the bottom scratcher, and they come in a little tub. It comes in powder form. It's not the cheapest thing to get, but it goes a long way. So you get a couple of spoonfuls of the Rainbowfish powder into a bowl, add boiling water to that, mix it up. You have to be quick because it is a jelly and it sets really fast. So you either pour it into a bowl where you can just leave it there, let it set to its jelly. You can cut it then into its desired sizes and feed them into your tank. It sinks to the bottom and it's really good for your bottom feeders. That then can be kept in the fridge for a couple of weeks, but you can also just keep it in the freezer, and when you need to use it, just pull it out 20 minutes before and it defrosts, and it's a great way of feeding into the tank. Shrimp love it. It's got a great stability in the water for your shrimp, so you can keep it in there for a couple of days if your shrimp are quite slow at feeding or you've not got many shrimp. Obviously don't overfeed, but you don't have to worry about it spoiling the water because it is quite safe and it holds itself in the water for a good couple of days. So yeah, Rainbowfish is really good. Also, you can actually, whilst you're making it, you can dip stones in it, and then when it sets on the stones, put them at the bottom of the tank, and your bottom feeders will graze on that all night long. The next food we're going to take a look at is bee pollen. Now, bee pollen is another one that's underused in the hobby, but it's a great food to feed your fish. It's full of protein and it dissolves in the water. Now, I don't feed my fish bee pollen all the time. I feed my tanks bee pollen if I see new fry in there. And what I do, so I'll get a couple of pieces of bee pollen, I put it in a little glass ramekin and I add some warm water, and I'll just let that dissolve in the water, giving it a little bit of a stir up. And once it's dissolved in the water, I pour that into my tanks, and those little molecules of protein disperse in the water, and your fry are going to be able to pick off that. And it's really good to get that healthy protein into the fry. And I also feed bee pollen to my shrimp tank. And what I do exactly the same. I let it dissolve in water, and then I pour it in, and I just kind of mix it around with a pipette, and I drop bits of it, drop little droplets of it throughout the tank. And I do that for a reason, because when a mother shrimp releases her eggs and they hatch, where them little shrimplets fall is where they're going to stay for the next couple of weeks. So those little molecules of bee pollen in the water are going to give those little shrimplets the best start they can have because of the protein in the diet, as well as those little bits of biofilm that they're going to feed on. There's going to be bee pollen near them as well, and it gives them the best healthy start possible. Bee pollen is definitely one to look at, guys. The next food we're going to look at, it's full of iron. Your fish will absolutely love it. Your shrimp will go crazy for it. There's a little bit of danger in picking it, but the good thing is it's free, and we're going to have to go and venture outside into nature to go and get it. So let's do it. And what that food is stinging nettles. There's a few things you need to take into account when you're picking stinging nettles. It's one, you don't want them anywhere near the road because you don't want any of the toxins from the traffic going onto the plant, and you also need to make sure that they haven't been sprayed with any pesticides. And the most important is when you're picking it, make sure you don't get stung. And what you'll find is your fish and your shrimp will go mad for this stuff. But when you are picking it, just try and get the top leaves only because they're a lot softer. And I will pick a few of these, then we'll get back to my place and I'll show you how to prep them. To prep nettles, again, you do have to be careful, but this is where your scaping tools come useful. So just remove the leaves. Say the top leaves, they really love because they're nice and tender. Just cut them away. And with those leaves, we add those to a ramekin of boiling water. Just place those in. Microwave for 1 minute. Please be careful when doing this as not to burn yourself. So then remove the leaves from the water. Drain the water away and then soak those leaves in cold water for 1 minute. Once they've cooled down in cold water for 1 minute, you'll notice that the leaves will sink to the bottom. That kind of means they're already cooked. And feed those to your fish and your shrimp. The next food I feed my fish are baby brine shrimp. And what I do there is I buy a brine shrimp and salt mix and I turn that over the next 48 hours into my own live food. And if you want to know how I do that, then watch this video next. And I'll see you there.